Hello, YouTube. It looks like we've got some Pokemon news today, so I'm gonna watch the trailer and then we are going to talk about it.
This Pokemon can't do my soul.
So overall, I think it was a pretty solid and quick announcement, and I hope you guys all have a great rest of your day.
Glitter takes over and spreads across.
In the stories. Roll post. This game is set in the Tal'Dorei campaign setting, and I am the DM. My boyfriend, who we will call Daniel, is a Dragonborn paladin, and his brother, who we will call John, played his Dragonborn ranger brother in the game. The other players will simply be known by their classes, which includes Cleric, Warlock, and Wizard. I have played different games with Cleric, Warlock, and Wizard, and know them to be very patient and encouraging players. Since D&D was new for Daniel and John, I felt this was the perfect team for them to get started with. Daniel immediately bonded with the party, but John struggled. Here's some context. John is high-functioning ASD, who was unfortunately stunted in his development by their mother, who felt he should, quote, play up his condition for government benefits. Daniel grew up having to keep his emotions numbed, while John and his mother would get in regular screaming matches. When Daniel approached his mother about why she just allowed this behavior, it was brushed away with, quote, that's just John. Daniel, however, was not allowed such outbursts. As much as I applaud the group for being so warm and accepting, this feels like movie-level foreshadowing. Like Stanley Kubrick himself took a break from torturing his staff and sat down to write an RPG horror story on Reddit. How that foreshadowing shadows forth? Let's find out. More context related to the game. During our session 0, I sat down with both Daniel and John to construct their characters and explain the basic mechanics of D&D. Daniel named his red dragonborn Barash and played into the lore of dragonborns. John named his black dragonborn Neltharion. Neltharion is, to my understanding, an existing character in World of Warcraft that is driven insane by a voice in his head and becomes Deathwing the Destroyer. So, the big bad evil guy. John wanted his Dragonborn nickname to be Deathwing as well, and wanted to have a voice in his head driving him insane. I mentioned that this was not an evil campaign, and asked if he would be open to Neltharion potentially overcoming the voice in his head, or actively fighting against it. He agreed at the time. Returning to our D&D game, we began playing online during the beginning of the pandemic. This game started out well enough, with the Dragonborn brothers being from Wildmount and unfamiliar with Tal'Dorei, which was a great way for them to play as first-time players. The rest of the party was from Tal'Dorei and brought together due to a mysterious book the wizard has that communicates future events with him. Events progressed fine, until I introduced the Clasp, an elite thieves guild. The Clasp had manipulated some kobolds into petty crime, with the desire to see how capable this new race to Tal'Dorei was. The kobolds stole precious items from each party member, including the Book of Future Events. John's ranger really shined here as he was able to track down the missing items and the lair of the kobolds in the sewers beneath Emon, the starting city. This is where things begin to unravel. The party enters the sewers, and for some reason really struggle with the rat swarms. I had about 8 swarms for a party of 2 players. One character was even knocked out in the process. The players then joked that the real villain of the game were rats. In fact, it's still a running joke in our group, no matter which campaign we're playing. But John was not amused. "This sewer is disgusting! I'm out of here!" And his character storms out. The party tries to rally him and stress how much they need him, but he refuses and splits the party. So I put on my improv DM hat and thought of a way to use this in the story. This is where I made a mistake. The party faced more rat swarms and tried to call out to John, who was sitting on the beach enjoying the breeze. The party eventually made it to the kobold nest, who were surprised to see him and cautious of their approach. It was at this point I had John roll a perception check. He rolled a 9. As you're enjoying the beach and the fresh air, you miss the footsteps behind you, and suddenly, your vision goes black. What the fuck? I attacked them! You can't attack them currently. They got the drop on you with that low perception check. But don't worry, they aren't trying to kill you. Your character is safe. I thought this was his worry, so I wanted to address it even if it meant tipping my DM cards some. He seemed to accept this explanation. The DM tipping their cards, so to speak, in an effort to comfort someone who they know have ASD is excellent handling of the situation. Many DMs feel insecure that they'll ruin the game by giving players an inch, but it's important to remember that it's still a game and to prioritize player happiness. Back at the kobold nest, the class revealed themselves to the party, which immediately put the entire kobold nest on alert. Remember, the class was using the kobolds. Never once to be unprepared, the class produced a tied-up John and began negotiation. John being cursing up a storm, making the players visibly upset at the slew of profanity. So I gently explained that John was gagged as well, but that the class was using him as a bargaining chip. He wasn't to be harmed. I did allow him to make strength checks periodically to see if he could wiggle out of the restraints, but a low strength mod did not help his lowered rolls. He accepted this and roleplayed the scene very well. The class needed the adventuring party's help with a rival gang and explained that in exchange for John, the party would be in contract with the class for one mission. The party agreed. John was passed to the group and the clasp disappeared. The kobolds, seeing that they were on the same side, provided levity for the end of the game with some silly shenanigans. The next session, however, John left the party to go hunting in the forest. Daniel decided to go talk to him and figure out their next move as brothers. John pulled his brow on him. "Come any closer, and I'll kill you where you stand." Confused, Daniel asked why his brother was mad at him when he was the one most concerned with getting him back alive. "You allowed them to attack me and didn't fight them. There were only 3 of them." Daniel explained that, yes, there were only 3 class members and a whole nest of kobolds. Not only would John have died, but maybe the entire party. "Well, you have to prove yourself to me and help me kill Luck, the main Tabaxi class member of the trio." Daniel explained that they had to complete this quest for the class not only to get closer to them again, but to be strong enough to fight them. You see, when the game ended, I explained over the next several days to John that the setting was meant to be intimidating for the party, where they had to make a difficult choice. John didn't realize the kobolds were technically against the party, and that the difficulty was a bit high for a party of level 2 adventurers. He began to understand, and then asked when he can kill Luck. I explained that they were too low level at the moment, but promised him he would get his revenge. Back to the game. "Well, then you aren't my brother." Stunned, Daniel, as a character and as himself, checked out. He went back to the party and they left Iman without John. I kept asking if John wanted to track them in the shadows stealthily, to which he declined. I paused the game and explained that I wouldn't be able to do one-shots with him as this full campaign required most of my attention, so he wouldn't be able to partake in what the party is doing. He said fine. I thought maybe he decided this group wasn't for him and that he wasn't jiving with my DM style. However, John made it very clear that he wanted to play in this group still. He just needed time to figure out where to take his character. I'm going to speedrun through what happened the next several sessions. 1. He still joined the table when his ranger hadn't rejoined the group and kept saying how inept they were without him and how lost they would really be if he left. He kept interrupting the game to explain what he would do if he were there, to which I finally stated that he wasn't and that his comments were not helping the party. 2. When he finally rejoined, he decided to actively hate Cleric both in-game. "God, Cleric, you really are stupid, aren't you? Why are you mad? I was joking." And out of game, which I really was not okay with. cleric has severe depression and didn't always have financial means for his medication, so when he was off his meds, things hurt him worse. 3. The party enjoyed an NPC I created. A Kenku owned a tavern and is trying to cobble enough conversation from her patrons together to have her own voice. Her name is Squawk. John threatened to kill her if the party stayed in the tavern for too long, and often complained out of game how much he hated her. We were living together at this point. 4. Anytime they leveled up, he would start the hunt for luck all over again. I would let him roll survival checks and investigation checks to try and appease this obsession. But finally, I just had to explain out of game that luck was way too high level for the party at this